Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Drew, and today I've got a good one. Today we're going to go over why exactly the market is doing what it's doing and what it has been doing this past week, considering that it started out really well and has obviously will finish very poor unless the rest of today ends up doing a massive U-turn, which I do not foresee. So why has this been going on? Obviously, we still have the war in Russia, or the war of Russia on Ukraine. They just took over a nuclear plant. Any type of information like that is unfortunately going to draw down the markets. War is just continuously scary and scares people because they don't understand what's going to happen with oil, things like that, wheat in Ukraine. All these inflationary pressures are obviously intensified when you're going through war. So that is the first thing that is drawing down the markets today. As well, we just had our jobs report. Really good. I'm going to have a YouTuber that I like to watch, Meet Kevin. I'm going to have him basically explain that a little bit with his video, which he did today. It was really good. But there's one factor of why it is not really good for our favors right now. As well, we had the Fed come out more dovish than they've ever been. Basically, Jerome Powell admitted that they're not going to go up 50 basis points. They're only going to go up 25 basis points, which is extremely good when it comes to the market because they're taking it as a slower approach because of the war in Ukraine, because they don't know exactly how much inflation is going to be impacted by just the war. So they're going to take it slower to collect more data to better assist. But at the same time, they are going to do more and more rate hikes than were anticipated this year. I believe you had a consensus between 5 to 7 this year, and it looks like they're going to extend this 2 to maybe 3 years and go 15, 16, potentially 17, 2.5 basis points rate hikes at a time. But with that, really good, dovish. So why is it bringing it down? Because they haven't done it yet. Until March 16th and the CPI data comes out and fully justifies their 2.25% rate hike, we're just in limbo. And so the markets are going to continuously act in a more volatile nature and probably will for the first 2 rate hikes. Do not be scared. Continue to invest. I'm still investing throughout this. I know the buy the dip just keeps getting lower and lower, but just like everything else, when you zoom out, the market has consistently gone up, and that is through the worst of times. So, big picture in mind, continue on. So, today, why is it dragging down? We already know now why the week is dragged down. Well, it's dragging down because the jobs report just came out, and it came out better than expected. The jobs report just came out. The consensus between the analysts was about 400,000 new jobs. We got over 600,000 new jobs. That is great. The unemployment rate was supposed to be around 3.9. It is now at 3.8, which is great. Jobs grew. As well, it looks like the wage price spiral that we were fearing with the last jobs report is ceasing to exist. So with that information right now, we're going to take it over to the Meet Kevin video real quick. I'm going to skim through it and just get you to the main talking points. So let's hop right on over.
This employment report was amazing. And it, again, was not just because we had about 250,000 more jobs than expected. The Bloomberg survey had us at about 423,000 jobs, the unemployment rate falling to about 3.9%. We ended up getting about 678,000 jobs, unemployment rate falling to 3.8%. Great, fine, whatever. And most sectors gaining. I mean, almost, I don't think there was actually a negative sector here. Leisure, hospitality.
Okay, so right here is just going over the sectors that had gained. It looks like every sector, hospitality, travel, things like that, everybody gained employment, which is really good. So we're going to skip through this.
Which is the report we just got. We've got to understand what happened in January and why it was such a disaster in terms of what it could have signaled to us. So in January, earnings went up 23 cents. This was that blue section right here, 21 cents. Or 23 cents rather, all the way up to 31.63. So these are the average hourly earnings. Now, in order to understand how much this actually went up, the correct thing to do is actually minus 23 cents here. So you end up with the...
Okay, so what he's going to do here is he's going to go through the math, and what he's going to show you is basically it looked like wages were going up 8.8% last month compared to inflation only going up 7.5%. And what that does right there is that creates a wage price spiral. Basically, it's saying that the average employee is getting paid more than inflation is going up, which means they can handle and take on the inflation that is going on. And so, i.e., if a consumer can continue to buy milk at $5 a gallon, why would they drop it back down, considering that wages are going up so drastically? And so he's going to go through the math, and he's going to show you that it comes out to about 8.8%. This month, though, it completely changed. So I'm going to fast forward through this. If you really want to check out Me Kevin, I highly suggest that you do. He is very good at explaining the analytics behind it, as well the math behind everything. But yes, and so this new jobs report is showing it completely different. So let's go on and just speed through that.
This means the start of a wage price spiral.
I'll let him explain that.
Which is very, very bad for that to continue, because that basically means workers have more power to demand more wages, more so than prices are actually going up, and it could start a self-sustaining cycle of inflation. The director of the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey said that we are seeing evidence of a start of a wage price spiral that is decoupling from supply chains, which means even as supply chains get better and prices go down, wages could just keep everything getting worse and worse and worse. That's like literally crisis mode, worst case scenario. The Federal Reserve will force a recession, pure FUD, pure disaster. Earnings of all employees were 31.58, little changed after large increases. So they stayed flat. But wait a second. This says 31.58. But wait, the last report we had said wages went up to 31.63, and going up to 31.63 was equal to an 8.8% increase. That's why we were freaking out about a potential wage price spiral. But wait a minute. Now they just went back and said, no. Wages actually last month were 31.57.
So after continuing, because they pull from certain weeks within a month and then they go to the next month, they were able to see that what they originally had was not the case. And so it didn't go up 31.63, it went up 31.57.
We went back and revised it and changed it. And now they went up 1 cent to 31.58. Like, wait a minute. That's actually doubly good news. So what you're saying is wages did not go up to signify a wage price spiral in February. And this is not to say we don't want people to make more money, right? It's just to say, like, in terms of an inflation aspect, this is good. Like, they're up, but they're stable. But you actually revised them down. So last month, we actually only had wage growth of about 6.6%, which is actually less than the inflation rate, which is not a signal of the wage price spiral.
Which is actually really, really good. So with it being lower, it basically is stating that consumers are not receiving the amount of money needed to purchase these products at the percentage in which they are increasing. So i.e., if you're only getting 6.6% more, but inflation is going up 7.5%, you then are short when it comes to buying that $5 gallon of milk. And what that is in turn going to do, which he's going to further explain, is going to pull you back. So before, when they were handing out stimulus and everything like that, and basically forcing us to go out and buy to boost up the economy, and during a time in which they were telling you to sit down and not do anything, so deflationary pressures, they were forcing you to go out there and buy, giving you stimulus to keep you purchasing so the economy didn't crash. And so now, if your rate isn't going up as high as inflation, what that's going to do is that's going to make the consumer sit back down. They're going to rethink what they're going out there and purchasing, and it should slow down buying. And by slowing down buying, i.e., companies will have to lower their prices to get consumers back in there purchasing, i.e., controlling or decreasing inflation. And that's very, very good because, i.e., if you can buy a house at 4% interest on your loan, why would you want to buy it at 8%? You're most likely not going to buy that house if you have to pay 8% interest. So you're going to sit back. And what that's going to do is going to slowly reduce inflation and get rid of these inflationary pressures and inflationary scares, and i.e. bring us back to all what the Fed is planning on doing and being more dovish, slowly raising interest rates instead of just rug pulling us because they believe that inflation can decrease over time instead of needing to force it down now. So I know that was long-winded, but it's a brief overview. Kevin's going to continue.
Not only do we have no wage growth now, but last month you took away the wage price spiral that you said there was. So you said you were wrong last month, and now you're revising the data, saying, no, never mind. Last month wasn't even that bad. Okay, like, wait a minute. This is actually really good news. This is really, really good news, because the biggest fear the Federal Reserve has, in my opinion, is the potential start of a wage price spiral where they have to force a recession, and then we have to start fighting the fears of potential stagflation. What does this now mean that the Federal Reserve could potentially do? Well, they have two options here. They could potentially be more hawkish. Maybe they could raise rates more, right? Because the labor market's doing so well. But I don't think they're going to do that, because we're actually seeing wages flat. And now we're already seeing people's purchasing power go down, because we're going to get, look, we had 7.75% inflation last month, right? 6.6% was the actual annualized wage growth for last month, which means a reduction in purchasing power. This month, wages, or last month, Feb, compared to January. Anyway, Feb, wages stayed flat, which means, again, a reduction in purchasing power. So why would the Fed decide?
Okay, so after checking that out, he explained it exactly how I wanted him to, and exactly how you need to take it right now. So it's looking like the Fed can be more dovish. They could obviously go more hawkish and force a recession, but there's no need to at this point. Wages aren't going up high enough, and it's looking like wages are actually going up slower than expected, which is in turn going to do the work for the Feds, because consumers are ultimately going to back down. They're going to slow down their spending. They're not going to spend as much. And they're going to do portion of the work for the Fed, which is really good, because the Fed, what they really want to do is just do absolutely nothing. They want to talk the markets to highs. They want to talk the economy, everything like that. They just want to be able to talk and do absolutely nothing, which is really, really well. Really, really good. And in this case, it still looks like they are going to have to do something. But with the purchasing power of the consumers being lower than the purchasing, or lower than inflation, it looks like it should slowly start correcting itself. Now, this doesn't mean that 6 months down the road, things don't change, because if things do go into like a wage price spiral, or these things get out of hand, then anything can change. But for right now, it's looking like March 16th, the Fed can keep their promise and go with a 25% basis points, or a 25 basis points instead of the 50 basis points. And we are looking good. But as I stated in the beginning, until that actually comes to fruition, expect these markets to be highly volatile. Expect them to be up and down, or just down in most cases. As well, the longer this war continues to go on, expect any bit of information that makes it to the mainstream media to have an impact on these markets. So, how do you invest in these times? You continue to buy in. Do not stop buying in. Throughout history, the markets have gone like this, and this is throughout every bad point that has been a dip. You've seen a bigger rise out of that dip. And when you buy those dips, those are the points you want to buy. When you see the market down there and then go all the way up to here, you're sitting there going, man, I wish I could have bought at the bottom right here. And then when it's up here, but then the bottom hits right here, it's the same story. Don't miss those buying opportunities. Maybe you shouldn't be as aggressive in this moment. Personally, I have 50% of my money on the sideline to continue to buy in, and I'm not going as heavy as I went, say, last year or the year before. But all in all, don't be afraid of what's going on. Continue to buy in, continue to get knowledge, see the bigger picture, zoom out, okay? So with that, that is my explanation on why the markets have been the way they have been this week. I'll do another one next week as well. I'll get into the YouTube portfolio sometime later this weekend. But yeah, with that, thank you for watching. As always, let's invest, let's make some money, and I'll see you next time. Peace.